The time is exactly 8:49 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media. Thank you for being with us, and we will be with you right up until 10 o'clock this morning. Our next guest is Dr. Ongama Mtimka. He is a political analyst, and we are going to be looking at the ANC's manifesto. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners.
Lovely to have you on the show, and let's look at what all the political parties are promising. This time around, it's the turn of the ANC. They are saying that they're promising us a better life at the manifesto launch. Cyril Ramaphosa has gone on to say on Saturday that his party, obviously the ANC, would build on the successes of the last 3 decades to work to resolve the country's challenges of high employment, crime, and poverty. So I'm kind of grappling with this idea, Doctor, when I think about, building on the successes of the last 3 decades. My thinking is that if anything, they just have not delivered over the last 3 decades. If anything, look at our electricity crisis, Transnet. Look at the situation of our road. There's just so much to go into. Unemployment. If they were not able to deliver in the last 3 decades, how are they going to fulfill their promises going forward?
Sure. So I think that the ANC, in framing its manifesto around the idea of building on from something, it's responding to a characterization of the last 3 decades as all failure. Now, the challenge with that is that you're quite right. It reframes it as an all success, and neither of the approaches is correct, because from 1994 up until the mid 2000s, we saw some significant successes, really good successes in the mass electrification in rural areas, the upgrading of townships, the upgrading of informal settlements, and the huge investments in the public education sector, among other things. The reality of the matter is that in the last 15 years, that very success has now gotten to be negated by years of persistent failures on the part of government, and I think mostly failures, even though even in that time, actually, you had a lot of investment, for example, in the Dubai Trade Port, the 30 billion pipeline between Joburg and Durban. But we all agree that the last 15 years in particular have been hardly years in which, based on which the president could write anything home about. Now, the other thing the ANC is forgetting is that South Africans are not going to judge it as on the basis of potential, like they are going to do with opposition parties. Precisely because South Africans, they listen to the ANC against the backdrop of you've been in government. How is it that you talk about the national challenges as though you just landed from the moon and you were not the governing party? So in that sense, then you're quite right in your feeling that this is not going to fly with voters as far as they understand the context that it's the governing that's saying these very same ideas. And it's not talking about them as though it acknowledges what it has done in that, whether it's 30 or last 15 years, to build on.
Dr. Mtimka, I kind of, and I think this issue is raised every time I speak with a political analyst. I am the one who raises it, and I look at the issue around large-scale corruption, cadre deployment, etc. Do you not think that there were opportunities for the ANC to have addressed those situations over the past 15 years and still then managed to salvage their image? And of course, use all of that for the betterment of the country, because clearly, due to corruption, due to sabotage at Eskom, due to the ports being in absolute dire straits, um, has really created a huge unemployment situation in the country that equates directly into the high crime stats that is also playing out in the country. They all seem to be, all of the issues are intertwined. Had we not had an unemployment situation, our crime levels, I think, I know with certainty, would be very, very low. Um, and the future would be very bright for our youth going forward.
I think the question about whether the ANC could have been able to address these challenges, starting with crime, unemployment, and joblessness, is spot on in the sense that the power in the changed in 2017. Now, in the first 2 years, they say that, well, we know that in the first 2 years, they were facing internal conflicts, which they resolved in that first 2 years. So by 2020, the internal opposition to President Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership had already been dealt with. I think that what we should have seen then from there is a boldness and a sense of urgency in dealing with the problems. It did not come. The reason why it did not come is because the ANC is a contested organization that while they talk about the ideals of a clean governance and a party that is led with integrity, this they are not able to do in practice because internally within the party, even though the RET faction has been neutralized, those that still remain within the Ramaphosa camp who are implicated in wrongdoing are not keen to create a situation where it's all rules based and integrity based. For example, look at how they are fighting about what to do, or deadlocked rather, about what to do with those that have been fingered in the Zondo Commission report. So the inability to decisively deal with integrity lapses in the party and failures to turn around the state enterprises all have to do with the political culture that is not geared towards excellence and competency. So in that sense, then you're quite right. They cannot be coming to South Africans to say, we give us another chance, we're going to deal with these issues, when they have in fact failed to deal with them, when they had ample time to deal with them. I see the process that they're trying to do with Kgalema Motlanthe, where they are now scrutinizing the list of those that are selected to go into to parliament at a national and provincial level. But even that process is being constrained by internal dynamics because people are not able to deal, to accept a rules-based and integrity-based approach only. They still want to use their power to secure their positions. In that way, then, it makes the ANC in a permanent crisis of inability to achieve even its own ideals that can, in its own documents about leadership character, among them through the eye of the middle, as the president cited on Saturday.
You raised a very important issue which has been very quiet for a very, very long time. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out in the upcoming elections. You spoke about the RET faction being neutralized, and we know that Lindiwe Sisulu and her, all her supporters were very hell bent on pushing RET forward. Has it truly been neutralized, or do you believe it's going to rear its head again post the elections? And depending on the outcomes of the elections, word on the ground is that the ANC will be fortunate if they get 40% of the vote. So responding to the RET situation and the outcomes of the results, Do you believe there's hope for the ANC going forward? Do you believe that they could reach a majority? If not, whom do you believe that they will go to bed with regarding a coalition? Because that probably would be the only hope for them, wouldn't it?
Let me start with the easier question. I don't think they will secure a majority,
Right.
and who they go into a coalition with is most likely going to be among the smaller parties
Mm,
that present to it less likelihood to change its core
mm,
policy offering. It will under if it is pushed, it might go with the EFF or with the DA, but I doubt that that's going to come easy because when the ANC thinks about a coalition partner, they will not be looking for a party that's going to push them away from the center. And both the Democratic Alliance and the EFF have got that potential. The EFF more left and the DA more right. And so
mm,
they would rather prefer to work with the smaller parties that are not too strong on ideology, such as the IFP or even the new kids on the block, Rise
mm,
and Zansi. I think the Action SA will, in fact, have the same effect as going into a coalition with the DA. But I think that given a choice, the ANC will still want to go with a smaller party like that than any of the big ones. Yeah. Then on the question of the the RET, I think in terms of politicians in the ANC that want to shift the trajectory of the party away from renewal and emphasis on integrity and values, that has been dealt with. Yes, there are some remnants of it, even among President Cyril Ramaphosa supporters. But the fact that the members of the RET have decided to explore political aspirations outside of the ANC is the
mm.
strongest indication that even they themselves accept that they have lost the party. What happens leading to the 2027 conference is going to be very interesting. Very interesting because we know that the politicking for that conference starts 2 years
Mm,
before the conference. And now, sorry, what's his name? Paul Mashatile, when he raises his hand, and it will be interesting which internal alliances he wants to leverage and whether those could be remnants of the RET will be interesting to determine. But for now, that faction is so obliterated that they've decided to explore their political aspirations outside of the ANC rather than inside. I forgot what your last question. Oh, on results, I think I've dealt with that one. I don't know if
mm, mm. No,
there's
you have.
one other aspect. Yeah.
Just to close off, then, Professor Dr. Ongama, let me ask you this question: your predictions going forward regarding the outcomes of the elections?
I think that we will still have ANC 1, DA 2, EFF 3, and it's going to be dog eat dog among small
Sure.
parties
Yeah.
because there are some that are not going to come back to parliament. I doubt we will see a cope. I think that UDM will scramble a seat or two, but it will be interesting what's going to happen. The IFP is definitely going to back with, I think, one or two more seats, actually, given how fluid KZN has become and how the IFP has been a comeback child in each of the elections since 2016. And yeah, I think
And
we will
Jacob
see.
Zuma's new party, how big a threat is that? Zuma's new party, the
I,
MK party.
I think that they may scramble a seat or two themselves. If they do well, they may be able to get 3-4 seats, mainly from KZN and Gauteng, in my view. And then we will see Action SA, Rise in Zansi, and Busa somewhere between 1 to 3 seats, or even to 4 seats.
Okay, interesting times ahead. I'm not quite sure post the elections, are we going to be getting more of the same, or are we truly going to be seeing the political landscape being shaken up, which it needs to, to do, because we as South Africans are sick and tired of all of the corruption and non-service delivery. We need our country. We need to pull our country back from the brink of disaster. It's been wonderful talking with you, Dr. Ongama Mtimka. Undoubtedly, we're going to have lots more conversations leading up to the elections. So, yeah, I think you need to be conserving your energy. We'll be doing lots of talking. Thank you indeed for your time. God bless and stay safe.
Thank you, you too.
It is exactly 4 after 9 o'clock. We are now going to take a short break, and then we'll be joined by Zai Jadwood with the news on supposed to be on the top of the hour, but of course we're running a little over time.